Hi everyone, this is Amynah, and today I will be reading a book about the life cycle of a flower. What is a flower? A flower is a part of a flowering plant. Like all plants, flowering plants are living things. They make their own food from air, light, and water. Flowering plants also make seeds. Each flowering plant has at least one or more flowers. The flowers are the plant's reproductive parts. Flowering plants and their colorful flowers have been on Earth for more than 100 million years. A flower up close. All flowering plants have the same parts: roots, stems, leaves, and flowers. Each part has a job to do. All the parts must work together to help the plant survive. Leaves absorb or take in sunlight and use it to make food for the plants. Many flowering plants have only one flower, but others have many flowers. The petals are often brightly colored. The stem holds the leaves upright. It also carries water and nutrients from the roots to the leaves and flowers. Roots hold the plant firmly in the soil and take in water and nutrients. The roots also store food. Fantastic flowers. There are more than 275,000 different species or types of flowering plants on Earth. Their flowers come in different shapes, sizes, and colors. Some flowers are tiny, whereas others grow to be more than 12 inches or 30 centimeters across. These pages show flowers of different colors, shapes, and sizes. And here are some pictures of some beautiful flowers. Where do flowers grow? Flowering plants grow in many habitats. A habitat is a place where plants and animals live. It receives specific amount of sunlight and rainfall and has a certain type of soil. Rainforests, grasslands, and deserts are examples of habitats. Suited to survive. Flowering plants are adapted or suited to their habitats. They grow almost everywhere on Earth. In extremely cold areas such as the Arctic, flowering plants have small leaves covered in fine hairs. The hairs help hold in heat. In deserts where it is hot and dry, flowering plants often store water in their stems. Desert plants usually have tiny leaves or no leaves at all because plants lose water through their leaves. By having no leaves, desert plants lose less water. Living in water. Aquatic flowering plants, such as water lilies, often live on or near the edges of lakes, ponds, and streams. These plants usually have long underwater stems. Long stems allow the plant's leaves and flowers to grow above the water's surface. The stems and leaf contain many tiny pockets of air that help them float. What is a life cycle? Every living thing goes through a set of changes called a life cycle. A flowering plant begins its life as a seed. The seed grows and changes until it becomes mature or fully grown. Mature flowers are able to make seeds. When each seed starts to grow, a new life cycle begins. Lifespan. A flowering plant's lifespan is the length of time it lives. Different plants have different lifespans. Annuals complete their life cycles in just 1 year. Biennials live at least 2 years. In their first year, they grow only leaves. Their flowers grow in the second years. Perennials live 3 years or more. There are many flowering plants that live 20 to 30 years. Others can live hundreds of years. A flowering plant's life cycle. A flowering plant's life cycle begins inside the seed. The seed germinates or starts to grow. As the seed begins to grow, small seed leaves appear above the soil surface. The seed leaves make and store food for the growing seedling or young plant. As the seedling grows, a bud forms and slowly opens. The seedling's true leaves or adult leaves also start to grow, and the seed leaf falls off. The flower is now mature and can make seeds. The seeds will become new flowering plants. Growing from seeds. The seeds of flowering plants can be many sizes, colors, and shapes. Some flowers contain many seeds, whereas others contain only a few seeds. Inside a seed. Each seed contains an embryo or a tiny unformed flower. A seed also holds food for the embryo. The embryo is protected by a hard outer covering called a seed coat. The embryo begins growing when it starts to take in water through its seed coat. Germination can take 7 to 120 days. Most seeds, including the sunflower seed below, germinates in 15 to 30 days. The tiny embryo absorbs water and swells until it cracks and pushes through its seed coat. The young roots grow downward into the soil to find water and to support the young seedling as it grows. As the roots continue growing, the seedling pushes its way up through the soil. The seed leaves are small at this stage. The seed coat falls away from the seedling. The stem of the young sunflower grows stronger and taller. The roots continue to grow underground. Taking their time. Seeds may not start growing right away. They need a certain amount of space, sunlight, and water. Many seeds remain dormant or inactive until conditions are right for them to begin growing. Seeds are often dormant through winter and begin growing in spring. Some seeds can stay dormant for years. Seedlings. After a seed germinates and its seed leaves appear above the soil surface, the small plant is called a seedling. During summer, the seedling stem becomes longer and grows upright. The seed leaves become wider and longer. They make food for the seedling by absorbing sunlight. As the seed leaves continue to grow, they often become bright green. Seed leaves. Different seed leaves have different shapes. Some seedlings have long and narrow seed leaves. The seed leaves of other seedlings are round or heart-shaped. Seed leaves often fall off once true leaves have developed. Using the sun's energy. Both seedlings and adult flowering plants use energy from the sun to make food. Making food from sunlight is called photosynthesis. The word photosynthesis comes from two words, photo, which means light, and synthesis, which means combination. Taking it in. Flowering plants start making food as soon as their leaves are large enough to absorb sunlight. To make food, a plant's leaves take in energy from the sun. They also take in carbon dioxide from the air. The plant uses the sun's energy to combine water and carbon dioxide to make food. The food that the plant creates is called glucose. Glucose is a type of sugar. While making food, the leaf releases oxygen into the air. The leaf also releases tiny droplets of water called water vapor. The leaves take in carbon dioxide from air. A mature flower. A flowering plant is mature when it has finished growing. A flower opens when the plant is ready to reproduce or make seeds. Flowers are the reproductive parts of flowering plants. Mature flowers are often brightly colored. They can be different shapes as well. Some, such as lilies shown above, are large with wide tops and narrow bottoms. Others are very small and grow in tight clusters or groups. Different species of maturing flowering plants have leaves of different sizes and shapes. Some are long, narrow, and slender, whereas others are wide and rounded. The stem of most mature flowers are sturdy and upright. Male and female parts. Flowering plants reproduce by making seeds. Mature flowers have male and female parts that produce seeds. A stamen is the male part of the flower. Some flowers contain one stamen, whereas others contain many. The pistil is made up of the female parts of a flower. It has a stigma at its tip. Ovules need pollen. Each stamen produces sticky grains of pollen. Pollen contains male cells. The pistil contains ovules or female cells. The ovules are inside the ovary at the bottom of the pistil. The ovule needs pollen from a stamen in order to become seeds. Pollination. Flowers cannot make seeds until they are pollinated. During pollination, pollen is moved from one flower stamen to a flower's pistil. There are three main types of pollination: cross-pollination, self-pollination, and wind pollination. Cross-pollination. Most flowers need pollen from other flowers of the same species to land on their pistils. The movement of pollen from one flower to another is called cross-pollination. Pollen is moved in many ways. For example, animals such as birds and insects carry pollen on their bodies as they travel from flower to flower. Self-pollination. Some flowers are able to pollinate themselves. During self-pollination, pollen moves from stamen to the pistil of the same flower. Flowers that self-pollinate have male and female parts that are close together, so the pollen can move easily from the stamen to the pistil. Wind pollination. Some flowers, including the ragweed above, are pollinated by wind. Wind sweeps pollen off these flowers and carries it to other flowers. Wind-pollinated flowers have millions of microscopic or extremely tiny pollen grains. These flowers seldom have nectar. Getting noticed. Flowers that need pollinators to pollinate them are usually brightly colored and smell sweet. Bright colors and sweet scents let pollinators know that a flower contains pollen or nectar for them to eat. Sweet smells. The scents of flowers attract many pollinators. Flowers that open at night often have strong scents. The strong scent these flowers give off to help insects find the flowers in the dark. A rainbow of colors. Flowers that are pollinated by insects often have bright blue, purple, mauve, pink, or yellow petals which stand out against nearby green plants. What is that smell? A few flowers, including the jack in the pulpit above, attract pollinators without smelling sweet. Instead, they smell like carrion or decaying animal flesh. The stinky smell these flowers give off attracts flies that feed on dead animals. The flies visit these flowers and pollinate them. Follow the guides. Some flowers, including violets, irises, and orchids, have special markings that direct pollinators to their nectar. These flowers have petals with lines that point toward the nectar. The lines are called nectar guides. Nectar guides help animals locate a flower's nectar and in turn ensure that pollination takes place. Special shapes. Some flowers are shaped so that only certain animals can pollinate them. A hummingbird pollinates long tube-shaped flowers. It uses its pointed beak to feed on nectar deep inside the flowers. As the hummingbird feeds, pollen brushes off the pistil onto its head and pollinates the next flower the bird visits. Making seeds. Pollen must land on a flower stigma to begin its journey to the ovary, where it will fertilize the ovules. Once an ovule is fertilized, a flower can make seeds. The flower goes through a series of changes as the seed grows. Down the pollen tube. After pollen lands on a flower stigma, a hair-like tube called a pollen tube grows downward until it reaches its ovary. Pollen travels down the pollen tube and into the ovary. The pollen fertilizes the ovules so they become seeds. Fading and falling off. Once the pollen fertilizes the ovules, the flower no longer needs to attract pollination. It keeps only the parts it needs. The flower's petals fade and then fall off. The stamens also wither and fall away. The ovary grows around the seeds. From flower to fruit. The ovary grows and swells as the seed ripen or mature. It becomes tough and thick to protect the growing seeds. The ovary is called a fruit when it is fully developed and ripe. The fruit contains the seed for the next flowering plant. Spreading seeds. Once the seeds are ripe, they must be dispersed or moved to new spots so they have enough room to grow. If a seed drops near other flowers, it might not have enough space for its roots and leaves to spread out. Different seeds are dispersed in different ways. Using the waterways. Water lilies and other aquatic flowering plants have small seeds that float to new growing spots. Water lilies have seeds that are enclosed in small cases of jelly. The jelly cases help the seeds float away in a lake or pond. As the weather gets warmer in spring, the jelly cases melt. The seeds fall to the bottom of the lake or pond where they begin growing. Animal carriers. Some flowers rely on animals to spread their seeds. When a squirrel eats a seed, the seed is carried to its new place in the animal's body. The seed is released in the animal's dropping and begins to grow. Blowing in the wind. The wind disperses the seeds of many flowers. Wind-dispersed seeds are tiny and light. When the wind blows in fields or gardens, it carries these tiny seeds away and scatters them in new places. Using parachutes. The seeds of a milkweed shown right are attached to the clusters of silky hairs. As the seeds float away in a breeze, these hairs act like parachute and help carry the seeds to grow to new growing spots. Dropping off. Some seeds are self-dispersed. They simply fall off or pop out of flowers that have dried out and land in the soil beneath. If the parent plant is tall or wide, the seed may drop a small distance from the parent plant. Other ways of growing. Most flowering plants grow from seeds, but flowers also have other ways of reproducing. A few plants produce bulbs that store food and grow into new plants. A bulb is made up of a short, swollen leaf packed around a fat stem. Others produce new plants called runners from their stems. Seedlings that grow from bulbs and runners start their lives joined to the parent plants. They get the nutrients they need to survive and grow from parent plants. Bulbs. Tulips and certain species of daffodils grow from bulbs. When the weather is warm, bulbs grow stems. Eventually, flowers grow on the ends of the stems. New bulbs grow on the sides of their parent bulbs. The bulb grow during the spring and summer, but do not grow at all during winter. Runners and rhizomes. Some flowering plants reproduce by spreading out. Flowering plants that make runners send out small shoots. The new shoots take the nutrients that they need to survive from their parent plant until they grow roots and stem of their own. The shoots then become separate plants. Another way of flowering plants spread out is by forming rhizomes. A rhizome is a type of stem that grows just beneath the surface of the ground beside the parent plant. Flowers are important. Flowering plants are important to the environment and to many other living things. They help keep the air we breathe clean and fresh. They also provide food for animals, including many insects. Cleaning the air. When flowering plants make food, they take in carbon dioxide, which is poisonous to people and animals. Flowering plants help keep the air clean by removing carbon dioxide from it. The oxygen that plants release into the air during photosynthesis is even more important. People and animals need to breathe oxygen. Oxygen makes the air fresher and cleaner. Plants produce most of the Earth's oxygen. People and animals cannot survive without plants. Oxygen in the water. Like all flowering plants, aquatic flowers release oxygen during photosynthesis. Almost all oxygen goes into the water in which the flowering plants live and grow. The animals that live in water take in the oxygen that the plants release. They use the oxygen to breathe, depending on one another. Flowers and insects depend on one another for survival. Flowers need to be pollinated, and insects need flower for food. In spring, worker honeybees spend most of their time gathering nectar and pollen from flowers. They carry the nectar and pollen back to their hives and eat it. They also use nectar and pollen to make beeswax. The bees use beeswax to build hives. Without the nectar and pollen, the flowers produce, these insects would not be able to continue living on Earth. Threats to flowers. Flowering plants face a number of dangers, including diseases, insect pests, and loss of habitat. The biggest threat to flowers and all plants, however, is people. When people clear lands to make room for farms and ranches, they destroy flowering plants. When plants are destroyed, the animals that rely on them for food suffer as well. Disappearing rainforests. Many flowers grow only in certain areas, such as rainforests. When these areas are destroyed, the flowers become endangered. Huge areas of rainforests are burned every day so that people can make bigger farms. As a result, hundreds of thousands of flowers that live in rainforests are in danger of losing their habitats. Scientists believe that many species of rainforest flowers have not yet been discovered. Some may even become extinct or gone from Earth, and we will never know how they existed. Learning more. One way you can help flowers and all plants is to discover more about them. Learn which native plants are endangered in your area and find out what people can do to protect them. Native plants, such as the sunflower shown right, are plants that grow without help from people. These plants are suited to the rainfall, sunshine, and temperatures of the area in which they live. Planting seeds. Another way you can help flowers is to plant some seeds in a garden or in your yard. Choose native plants that grow well in your area. Avoid growing plants that need extra watering or fertilizers. Fertilizers are substances added to the soil to help plants grow. And this brings us to the end of this book. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you again very soon with our next book. Till then, stay safe. Bye bye.